The Byzantine Empire, a continuation of the Roman Empire, dominated much of the eastern Mediterranean for centuries. At its height, the empire was a beacon of wealth, power, and influence, overseeing a vast territory that stretched across Europe, Asia, and North Africa. However, by the 11th century, the Byzantine Empire was in decline. Military defeats, internal instability, and the rise of new powers on its borders, particularly the Turkish Beyliks, led to a shift in the region's political landscape. This period marked the beginning of a complex and multifaceted relationship between the Byzantine Empire and the various Turkish Beyliks that emerged in Anatolia. While at times cooperative, this relationship was also fraught with tension, rivalry, and conflict. The Byzantine Empire, by the 11th century, had already faced significant challenges: the weakening of its military, the loss of important territories, and a series of internal political crises made it vulnerable to external threats. The rise of the Seljuk Turks and their victory over the Byzantine forces at the Battle of Manzikert in 1071 was a major turning point. The defeat at Manzikert left much of the Byzantine territory in Anatolia exposed to Turkish invasions. This battle, in which the Byzantine Emperor Romanos for Diogenes was captured, resulted in the loss of vital land in the region. The Seljuks, having established their dominance, began to expand rapidly into Anatolia, establishing the Sultanate of Rum and creating a power vacuum that allowed other Turkish beyliks to take root. In the aftermath of the Battle of Manzikert, the Byzantine Empire's grip on Anatolia became tenuous, and several independent Turkish states, known as beyliks, began to emerge. These beyliks were smaller, more flexible, and militarily capable entities that arose as the remnants of the Seljuk Empire fragmented. The Turkish beyliks, often led by local rulers or warlords, grew in power and influence, challenging the Byzantine Empire for control over the region. As a result, the Byzantine emperors, faced with the growing power of the Turkish beyliks, had to shift their strategies and increasingly relied on diplomacy to secure alliances, maintain peace, and safeguard the empire's remaining territories. The relationship between the Byzantine Empire and the Turkish beyliks was one of delicate negotiation, shifting alliances, and occasional warfare. The Byzantine emperors, recognizing their military limitations, often sought to use diplomacy as a tool to maintain peace and protect their interests. Marriage alliances were one of the most common diplomatic strategies employed by the Byzantines. Marriages between Byzantine royal family members and Turkish rulers were not just ceremonial, they were strategic, designed to solidify alliances and ensure peace. For instance, Emperor Manuel I Komnenos, who ruled from 1143 to 1180, secured a marriage alliance with the Seljuk Sultanate of Rum, one of the most powerful Turkish states in the region. This marriage helped to stabilize the relationship between the two powers, as it aligned their interests and reduced the likelihood of military conflict. Similar diplomatic marriages were made with other Turkish beyliks, such as the Danish Mends, which controlled parts of northern Anatolia. While these alliances through marriage were vital for maintaining peace, they were often temporary and fragile. The political landscape in the region was volatile, and power dynamics shifted quickly. A marriage alliance, while providing short-term security, could easily break down if the interests of the two parties diverged. The Byzantine Empire found itself at the mercy of these shifting alliances. The Turkish beyliks, with their own ambitions for territorial expansion, were often more focused on their own goals than on maintaining long-term peace with the Byzantine Empire. In addition to marriage alliances, military pacts were another tool employed by the Byzantine emperors to manage the growing Turkish threat. These pacts were often formed in response to immediate dangers, such as external invasions or rival Turkish beyliks seeking to expand their territories. In these pacts, the Byzantines would offer military aid or other support in exchange for protection, temporary peace, or military cooperation. For example, when the Byzantine Empire faced attacks from the Seljuk Turks, it sought alliances with neighboring Turkish beyliks, such as the Danish Mends, to secure assistance in defending their remaining territories. The Byzantine Empire strategy was often one of pragmatism, lining itself with those Turkish states that could help defend it or counter the threat of more powerful rivals. However, while these military pacts were practical in the short term, they were rarely stable in the long run. The Turkish Beyliks, like the Seljuks and the Danish Mends, were often in competition with each other, and their loyalties to the Byzantines were not always reliable. Additionally, the Byzantines, despite their strategic alliances, were still losing ground to the Turks. The Seljuk Sultanate of Rum and other Turkish states continued to push deeper into Anatolia, eroding Byzantine control. As the Turkish Beyliks solidified their power in the region, the Byzantine Empire's ability to secure effective military alliances became more difficult. Another critical factor in the Byzantine Empire's diplomatic relations with the Turkish Beyliks was trade. The Byzantine Empire controlled key trade routes between Europe and Asia, and the Turkish Beyliks, with their expanding territories, needed access to these routes for economic gain. Trade agreements, therefore, became another avenue for diplomacy. By establishing trade relations with the Turkish Beyliks, the Byzantines hoped to foster cooperation and reduce tensions. Trade allowed for the exchange of goods, such as grain, luxury items, and military supplies, which were essential to both parties. At times, the Byzantines would use trade agreements as leverage in negotiations, offering valuable trade privileges in exchange for peace or military assistance. Religion played a complex role in these diplomatic relations. The Byzantine Empire, as the center of Orthodox Christianity, saw itself as the defender of Christianity in the East. While many of the Turkish Beyliks were Muslim, this religious divide created both a source of tension and a tool for diplomacy. The Byzantine Empire at times would seek to strengthen its alliances with other Christian states in the region, such as the Crusader states, in order to counter the growing influence of Islam in Anatolia. Conversely, the Turkish Beyliks, many of which had converted to Islam, used their religious identity to unite other Muslim tribes and states against the Byzantines. Despite these religious differences, both sides understood the importance of diplomacy in maintaining stability and securing their interests. The relationship between the Byzantine Empire and the Turkish Beyliks during the 11th and 12th centuries was complex, marked by a constant balancing act of diplomacy, military strategy, and political maneuvering. While the Byzantine Empire struggled to maintain its control over Anatolia, it used diplomacy to secure alliances, manage trade, and protect its remaining territories. The rise of the Turkish Beyliks, however, meant that the Byzantines' power in the region was steadily eroding. The Byzantine Empire's diplomatic efforts, while effective in the short term, could not halt the broader trend of Turkish expansion. The era was one of shifting alliances, rivalries, and a delicate balance of power that would ultimately lead to the decline of the Byzantine Empire in the face of a rapidly growing Turkish presence in the eastern Mediterranean. The Byzantine Empire's relationship with the Turkish Beyliks continued to evolve through the 12th and 13th centuries, shaped by both cooperation and intense rivalry. Despite the weakening of Byzantine power after the Battle of Manzikert in 1071, the Byzantine Empire still attempted to use diplomacy as a means of counteracting the growing strength of the Turkish Beyliks. The Byzantine emperors, faced with the ongoing expansion of Turkish forces in Anatolia, were increasingly forced to rely on strategic alliances, military pacts, and trade agreements to maintain their grip on the region. One of the primary diplomatic tools used by the Byzantine Empire was the formation of alliances through marriage. Byzantine emperors often married daughters of Turkish rulers in order to create bonds between the two powers. These marriages were not merely symbolic, but served as critical diplomatic tools to maintain peace and prevent military conflict. For instance, Emperor Manuel I Komnenos, who reigned from 1143 to 1180, arranged several such marriages, including one with the daughter of the Sultan of the Seljuk Sultanate of Rum. These unions helped to ease tensions between the Byzantines and the Seljuks, offering a temporary peace in the face of military threats. Despite the benefits of these marriage alliances, they were often unstable. political dynamics in the region shifted rapidly, and the interests of the Byzantine Empire and its Turkish allies were not always aligned. Once the immediate threat was neutralized or the political climate changed, these alliances were frequently broken. The Turkish Beyliks, with their own expansionist ambitions, were less interested in long-term peace with the Byzantine Empire, often prioritizing their own territorial interests over maintaining an alliance with the Byzantines. This instability led to ongoing diplomatic challenges for the Byzantines, whose ability to control and maintain these alliances was limited by their weakening military position. Alongside marriage alliances, military pacts were another essential element of Byzantine diplomacy. As the Turkish Beyliks gained power, the Byzantines found it necessary to engage in temporary military alliances to counter the threat posed by stronger Turkish forces. The Byzantines often sought to align themselves with weaker Turkish Beyliks against more dominant ones, hoping to gain military support in return for protection or land. For example, during the 12th century, the Byzantines formed an alliance with the Daneshmends, a Turkish Beylik in northern Anatolia, to resist the Seljuk Sultanate of Rum. These alliances, though helpful in the short term, were never guaranteed to be permanent. The Turkish Beyliks, even when allied with the Byzantines, frequently broke their promises when their own interests took precedence. The Byzantine Empire also used its control over vital trade routes as a diplomatic lever in dealing with the Turkish Beyliks. As the dominant economic force in the Eastern Mediterranean, the Byzantine Empire controlled access to lucrative trade routes that connected Europe and Asia. The Byzantines, therefore, used trade agreements as part of their diplomatic strategy to secure peace with the Turkish Beyliks. In exchange for military or political support, the Byzantines offered favorable trade deals, allowing Turkish Beyliks to access key markets and resources. These agreements benefited both sides but also exposed the inherent weakness of the Byzantine Empire, its reliance on diplomacy and trade to maintain power in a region where military strength was becoming increasingly important. Religion was also a factor in these diplomatic interactions. The Byzantine Empire, as the center of Orthodox Christianity, viewed itself as the protector of Christian lands in the East, while the Turkish Beyliks, who were mostly Muslim, saw themselves as protectors of Islamic interests. This religious divide added another layer of complexity to the relationship, as both sides tried to use religion to rally support from their respective populations. The Byzantine Empire, for instance, often sought to secure alliances with Christian states or rulers, appealing to shared religious ties to counter the growing influence of the Turkish Beyliks. Conversely, the Turkish Beyliks leveraged their Muslim identity to unite other Muslim states against Byzantine Christian rule. Despite the diplomatic efforts of the Byzantine Empire, the Turkish Beyliks continued to grow in strength throughout the 12th and 13th centuries. The Byzantine Empire, increasingly under pressure, was often unable to prevent the expansion of these Turkish states. The Beyliks, now firmly established in Anatolia, posed a direct threat to Byzantine control over the region. The repeated breakdown of alliances, the shifting nature of diplomacy, and the increasing militarization of the Turkish Beyliks ultimately made it difficult for the Byzantine Empire to retain control over its Anatolian territories. In the final years of the Byzantine Empire, particularly in the 13th century, the once great empire's diplomatic tools became less effective in preventing the rise of Turkish power. The collapse of Byzantine authority in Anatolia marked a turning point as the Turkish Beyliks, strengthened by their military conquests and alliances, began to dominate the region. Despite the Byzantines' ongoing efforts to use diplomacy to counter this rising threat, the empire's decline made it increasingly difficult to maintain these fragile relationships. In conclusion, the relationship between the Byzantine Empire and the Turkish Beyliks during the 12th and 13th centuries was characterized by a mix of diplomacy, military, alliances, and ongoing rivalries. While the Byzantines tried to use diplomatic strategies like marriage alliances, military pacts, and trade agreements, their declining power and the growing influence of the Turkish Beyliks meant that these efforts were often short-lived. The political landscape of Anatolia was changing, and the Byzantine Empire, unable to effectively adapt to these changes, found itself increasingly sidelined in the face of Turkish expansion. This marked the beginning of a new era in the region, one in which the Byzantine Empire would struggle to maintain its influence over the increasingly powerful Turkish Beyliks.